I was once giving a talk to a group of Christian school teachers and administrators at a conference when I spontaneously asked this question: what is the purpose of education? Because I had a particular answer in mind, I answered my own question before anyone else could reply. I said, the purpose of education is to equip the next generation to rule well over this material world. Following this statement, the silence in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I just let the silence hang in the air for a moment, and then someone near the front asked, "Would you mind repeating that?" So I did. The purpose of education is to equip the next generation to rule well over this material world. And then I asked, has anyone ever told you that before? Nobody raised their hand. Actually, I had never heard anyone tell me this before either. I based my statement on the first chapter of Genesis, verse 28. I call it the first commission, not the Great Commission, which we read about in Matthew, but the first commission. That's because it's the commission God gave to Adam and Eve at the very beginning of human history. This is the commission that clarifies God's job description for human beings. And because we have such a clear and unambiguous job description, we have a clear and unambiguous purpose for education, if we link the two together. What was God's job description for humans? Well, simply put, our assignment is to govern over planet Earth. Now that's quite an assignment and a responsibility. In the first commission of Genesis 1:28, God told Adam and Eve these straightforward words: be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it. Let's pause right there. Fill the earth and govern it. Some translations say, fill the earth and subdue it. To rule over planet Earth, not just the animals, but the whole earth, was what God had in mind for humans. He created us in his likeness and image so that we could fulfill this governing function well. Education, then, if it is linked to this purpose for existing, should equip the next generation to rule well over this material world as God's deputies on assignment. We truly have an awesome assignment and responsibility. Education should prepare us to do that well, don't you think? Some people seem to believe that God rescinded the first commission when sin entered the world, but I don't see this in Scripture. I believe the original job description still stands. It's referenced again in Psalm 8 and other places, and by implication, it's also found within the Great Commission of Matthew 28, where Christ tells his disciples to go into all the world, teach all nations, to observe whatever he taught them. That observation of what Christ taught doesn't just happen at church or in the home. We do have a responsibility before God to govern well over the whole of God's creation, even in its broken condition. I should say, especially in its broken condition. The purpose of learning, then, is to bring farming, business, law, economics, journalism, civil affairs, plumbing, and preaching into alignment with God's ways for his glory, as his representative image bearers, his deputies on assignment in planet Earth. The 17th century Puritans had a great way of seeing things that was summed up in their so-called Puritan circle of knowledge. It went like this. Number one, God initiates all things through his primary creation of everything. That would include plants, animals, and minerals. Number two, humans discover what God has made. We do this formally in school. And number three, humans imitate God by making secondary creations based on their discovery and understanding of God's primary creation. And number four, God is glorified through the imitation of him in human occupations of all kinds, from making shoes to building houses and whole communities. This circle of knowledge stood in stark contrast to the Greek purpose for learning, which I will share in chapter 7. Theirs was a strictly man-centered purpose, which was revived by John Dewey, the American educator of the 1930s who became known around the world as the father of so-called progressive education. Education in America has not been the same since John Dewey, and we have buried the Puritan circle of knowledge down deep. The Greek purpose for learning has led the United States down a path of ruin as great as the fall of Athens. Please read Chapter 7 in Assumptions That Affect Our Lives, titled Hebraic Education.